Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, and welcome to another round of GPVWC Sim Racing, and welcome to what is a brave new era here at the GPVWC with our first open wheel series here on R Factor 2. It is our pleasure this evening to bring you the Atlantic Series. Joining me this evening to call the shots and the action on this first round from the Barber's Motorsports Park, we have on cameras Mr. Cameron Brewster. But joining me in the commentary booth this evening is Mr. Thomas Jacobs. So say good evening, sir.
Hello, everyone. Hope you enjoy tonight's action.
Yes, indeed. And this is the literal dawn of a new era, a new age, as GPVWC moves starts to move its open wheel series onto R Factor 2, and this series will be our take of the famous IndyCar series. And over the next 8 rounds, we'll be visiting some of the United States' greatest road and oval courses, the likes of which being Sebring, Circuit of the Americas, and of course we'll have 2 rounds, in fact, both on the infield and the oval at Indianapolis. But tonight we begin in the Barber's Motorsport Park in Alabama. This circuit was built in 2003, and this 3.8-kilometer circuit has a little bit of everything. Plenty of fast, flat-out sweeping sections, a huge amount of undulation, and a few good slow-speed corners for good measure. All will prove a great test for our drivers tonight to show who will be able to get the absolute most from the Stellara DW12 IndyCar and who's been able to adapt to the challenge, which is R Factor 2. Tom, as an open-wheel driver predominantly, open-wheel cars, to me anyway, are hard as anything to drive. Driving this car on R Factor 2 with all of the little nuances that the new tire model and physics and whatnot brings, just amplifies that challenge. What's your thoughts going into this evening's of racing as we are stepping into a new age here of racing?
Well, first of all, these Dallara cars have got quite a lot of downforce, especially if they're using the road layout or the upgrades. So they've got a hell of a lot more downforce than what the oval setups would have. That's going to definitely increase tyre wear, and especially around corners like Turn 1 and the chicane of Turn 8 and 9, it's going to push the cars or the tyres quite a lot, and it'll be interesting to see if people can make their tyres last longer than others around them.
Absolutely. But, I beg your pardon.
No, that's fine. I just needed a bit of an intake of breath. But yeah, also there's quite a lot of people who do like the Super League and Super Cup series from GPVWC, like Nick Rowland, who's formerly Super League, and Sven de Vries, who I think is he in Super League now? I can't quite remember.
Super Cup.
Super Cup. Yes, because he was doing very well last year in Super Cup, and it'll be interesting to see if, because a lot of people like to push the cars to the limits, like Lewis Redshaw, for example, from Super League. He always locks up going into corners. You try that here, and it's just going to ruin the tyres within laps. You won't be able to make 10 laps.
Absolutely. And, once you get in particular, so locking up is something certainly everyone should try and keep an eye out for. You lock up a tyre, you will have that flat spot for the rest of for the rest of the time you've got that tyre on, and that will shake you. I guarantee it. Anyway, the format this evening is quite different to what you may be used to, and we are in our second phase of qualifying. We are in what is called the Fast Six. We've had 15 minutes of open qualifying for 27 drivers to go out there and set their fastest times. And now the fastest 6 drivers from that initial round are now going out to better their times once again, with 5 minutes to go, as they try and push themselves for the ultimate lap time round this Barber's Motorsport circuit. Interestingly, we've got a little split of strategy. We have 5 drivers using the alternate compound. I'll refer to it as the option compound, the tyre with the red sidewall. And we have 1 driver using the prime compound, the black sidewall. That driver being Lars Brugman. So to be able to get that harder compound tyre up to this stage is a great indication that he's clearly liking the car and got the car working well. But everyone else running that option tyre, so keep an eye out for them setting the really quick times. Interestingly as well, we have 2 Team Proline cars, 2 walk racing cars, a Scuderia Basilica being driven by Nico Barkley, and I believe a midnight car for Nick Rowland. Unfortunately, not quite got the livery on that one yet, but plenty of spread of teams as well, which is good to see. Anyway, currently we've got 4 drivers on track at the moment, a few just returning from the pit lane. Currently in P5 is Lars Brugman. He is on that harder tyre as he then now runs down to the hairpin of turn 5. Kind of split over a couple of apexes. Very difficult to get that one right, isn't that right?
Yeah, I mean, I was just watching Nico Barkley go on the final corner to start. I think it was his flying lap or finish it, but he went wide and onto the grass, and yeah, he was finishing a lap, so he was 15 seconds off after rejoining the track, and that's also messed up this lap he's on now. But also looking down at the chicane, like I mentioned earlier, everyone locking up, like pushing the tyres a lot. So, you know, in qualifying it's not going to cost much, but in the race quite a lot.
Absolutely. Really, I think it will be a race of attrition to some regards. Obviously, if you make a mistake, these cars are so quick, you will find yourself in a barrier very, very quickly, unfortunately. But as everyone is making their way around, we are, I believe, on board with Lars Brugman, who's just gone into the pits. Hopefully he's just getting himself restocked with fuel and tyres, and he'll make his way out. He's got another few moments here, a few minutes, and I think he's making his way out. So hopefully he'll be able to ride on board with him here as he leaves the pit lane and goes round to get his out lap underway. Very important to build core temperature in these tyres to give you absolute grip, best amount of grip you can get going onto your fast lap, which you'll only get 1 or 2 of now at this point, with the time remaining. Also, our apologies in advance. Unfortunately, you might see our overlay this evening has got a slight bit of ghosting to it. Unfortunately, that's something we haven't quite, or we only just realised was happening just a few moments before the broadcast. So our apologies for that, but it does still show you all the critical information. We'll hopefully have that sorted next time out. Anyway, as Lars has now come through the first sector, down into this very, very tricky turn 7, turn 8 complex, a chicane, downhill into a hairpin corner. He accelerates nicely through 9 and 10, a very fast chicane. I think now down into the most difficult section of the whole course, 11 and 12, completely blind going down in, completely blind coming back out, and it's cambered all the way as well. So very, very challenging. He's done that nicely. He's set himself up well for a good lap here, or a good out lap, and here he comes now onto his fast flying lap. Tom, talk us round.
Right, coming down to turn 1, the tricky part here is going to actually be the exit of it. A lot of people I saw earlier, it's actually their rear wheels have just touched the grass. He stays well clear of that going into turn 2 and 3. Ooh, just kicking the back out a bit, but he's leaning very heavily on that front left tyre. So, you know, he's pushing quite a lot here. Down to turn 5 and 6, braking. He's locking the front. Oh, that's a huge lockup. He's managed to get it turned in and get the apex nicely for turn 6 and 7. Coming down into the chicane, he's, as you mentioned before, completely blind. So he's riding the curb a little bit, but he's got that nicely stopped and nicely over the curbs. Coming down, I see that's Nick Rowland ahead. Hopefully that's not too much hassle for him, but that's gonna be something on his mind right about now. But down into the very undulating turns 14, to turns 12 and 13, and into the penultimate corner, locking that rear left, front left again. Into the final corner. Hopefully, he should get a nice. Oh, he's run wide. He's just missed the barrier, but that's his lap over, and possibly next lap. And since the time's run out, he won't be actually able to advance anymore.
No, not indeed, not at all. So he'll have to bring that one back in. Oh, he escapes the track. He might get some RAF there from the administrators. But as it stands, he's currently in P5. Jarl Tyen for Team Proline is currently on pole, only just by 0.005 of a second at this point. And Danny Asbury is in 3rd place at the moment for Walk Racing, just a 10th, or just shy, sorry, of 0.2 behind East Beat for Walk there. So all very close. Literally our top 6 split by just 0.7 of a second. Just hearing from our cameraman, unfortunately, the commentary and the pictures may be out of sync by a good few seconds, so our apologies for that. So obviously this is going to be a little staggered. So we'll try and talk you through what we're seeing, and if you can just picture that, well, you'll get the pictures in a little while after that. So
Rude Eastbeak has just taken pole position by 25 thousandths. I was watching the second half of his lap, and on the final corner, he just ran a little wide, got the front right tyre onto the grass, but it didn't seem to hamper him at all. But taking pole position by 25 thousandths, that's how close this grid is at the moment between the top 2.
And that has put himself on pole position. The best lap on the most amount of rubber we've had done by Rude there, and he's got absolutely everything from the car. A 1:02.1, as you say, 0.002 of a second ahead of Jarl Tyen, and a pole position for Walk Racing here in the very inaugural round of the GPVWC Atlantic Series. So our grid order through the top 10 is as follows. We will have Easterbeek from Tyen, Asbury from Roland, Brugman from Barkley, De Vries from Young, Gomez, and rounding out that 10 will be Luke Walsh. So that whole group split by just 1.3 seconds. And there we go. A very, very close and intriguing first qualifying session here for the Atlantic Series. The trick will now be who can take that pace and not push the car too hard and cause themselves a drama in the race. So just as our session is migrating now, we'll have a quick warm-up session just before our first race. It's only the one race this evening. It'll be over 45 racing laps. We'll have one formation lap. It will be a rolling start. And rolling starts, Tom, they're a particular challenge, and not like your standard standing start, which is all about just making sure you get the absolute best traction from the car off the line.
Indeed. I mean, I've never had the opportunity to do a rolling start, but from videos I've watched of like real racing, they usually have their throttle fully down and actually riding the brake, so that when they're all good to go and the lights go green, or in this case, someone says, let's go racing sort of thing, they just lift their foot off the brake and they've got all the power there immediately. So it's not really hampering them having to slowly push the pedal down to reach maximum revs. But yeah, with, was it 27 vehicles? And with, it's this somewhat short start-finish straight, and with the start and finish line closer towards turn 1 than it is the final corner, it's going to be very interesting to see if everyone makes it through turn 1 at least cleanly.
Yes, hopefully so. The issue will be that obviously it's not quite an hour. It's going to be around the 50-minute mark, I'd say, perhaps a little bit less, given the lap times everyone is doing. But you know, it's a long old race, and it's one of those things. You know, the old adage, and it's very, very true. In order to finish first you have to finish. And I do fear that there may be a little bit of short-term thinking, but hopefully that will not come to pass. We'll have to wait and see. But it's a very good point that you make. Turn 1, very, very, very fast left-hander. Pretty much only one line through there, unless you've got two very compliant drivers side by side. So yes, I don't think overtaking opportunities will be available through 1. But you get a nice line through 2. Good exit. You'll certainly be able to make some positions up towards turn 5 and the hairpin there, which ends the first sector. So I think it's going to be a game of lining yourself up and thinking a few corners ahead, which will win out the day. Anyway, so one final thing to mention. You saw our drivers, of course, using a split selection and range of tyre compound. In the rulebook, our tyres would normally be allowed at this point to change their tyre compounds between qualifying and race, so they could run a separate strategy. As it is at the moment, however, in the mod, as it currently is, and this is a little bug with the mod, or a glitch in the mod, our drivers' tyres are in fact locked to the compounds that they start, or they did their qualifying laps on. So we'll have a good proportion of the field running that alternate, that option compound tyre. We're not quite aware of the actual time difference between a prime and an option tyre. However, I think it would be probably fair to say that it will degrade a little bit quicker than perhaps the prime tyre would do normally. So it'll be interesting to see those who have gone on the prime tyre, if they can go much deeper into the race, and therefore perhaps get that super sticky tyre on it towards the end and make some places up at that point. So Tom, I mean, so you've been taking part, of course, in World GT this year. Of course, also running on R-Factor 2. Strategy has been a big part of that series so far. Do you see it being a big part of this series as well?
I'm not entirely sure. I mean, it all depends on driving style. I mean, we've seen people in World GT, you know, basically do the entire race on one set of sprint option tyres, whereas people have to go through several sets of the endurance or the harder tyre. So it all comes down to driving style, also setup as well. I mean, if they've gone for pure outright speed over like tyre management and fuel management, then you know it's going to mix up the results. I mean, looking at Lars Brugman on the as you said, the harder tyre, he's in the best position because I think he's 5th. He starts the race 5th, so he's in the pack for the option tyre people. and he's also got the pace to make that tyre work as well. Whether he can actually make the tyre last longer than, let's say, Nick Rowland or Heasterbeek, who's on pole, we won't be able to tell until about halfway through the race when people either start stopping or continue on.
Yeah, indeed. And I think this will be a story of strategy. However, as we've just seen in warm-up quite well, obviously you won't be seeing pictures at this point. We've got the banner on, but a few drivers really trying to find the limit of the cars with fuel and whatnot on board, and a few finding that the walls are a bit closer than they may have thought otherwise. So I do think it will be a race of strategy, almost perhaps driving to a lap time. You know, knowing that you've got pace in the car and potential in the car if you need it to perhaps get an overtake done, but not pushing 100% every single lap, because that will invite trouble. You'll use up your tyres, you'll use up your fuel, and that will cause you problems in the long run, that's for sure. We are expecting everyone, by the way, to have to do a single stop. The fuel tanks, I believe, have a maximum capacity of 54 litres, and that will not get you to the end. You'll be able to get 38 or so laps done on that, whereas we've got officially 46 with our rolling start. And yes, we will have to we'll have to wait and see how the strategy pans out. Are people going to be running light at the start or heavy at the start? We will find out in just a few moments' time. We've got a couple of minutes of warm-up still to go, and with that, everyone's still just trying to find that, I guess, the fine balancing act of getting these cars to work on full fuel. Of course, these being open wheelers, very different beasts with full tanks, wouldn't you say?
Indeed. I mean, all the people that are on track are probably testing out their strategies to see how the car feels before it goes into the race. But as you said about the issue we have at the moment, that people can't change compounds. So maybe they've gone, oh, I'll run that tyre there, and then run that in the race, and might not have known about the issue. So they might be thinking about what they can do now. But yeah, it's definitely a good idea in practice and warm up to practice your strategy, just to kind of get used to it. Because you don't want to go into turn one blind and then take out a big selection of cars, including yourself. Because then you've done all that practice and testing for now.
Yep, very true, very true. And just actually clarification. Our formation lap, our rolling start, everyone will be in single file. It will not be a too wide rolling start. So our fears perhaps of people being a little cheeky and trying to get an overtake done into turn one, I think that would be made a little bit more tricky if everyone's in a single line. So unless there's a truly monumental start from someone anyway. So with that being clarified, we've just got a few moments to go. Anyone you'd suggest our viewers keeping an eye on, Tom, throughout the race? As you've said, we've got a lot of drivers from all over, actually, the GPVWC leagues in today. Quite a few from Super Cup and Super League, of course, very traditionally good with open wheelers on R Factor 1. Would you say that those skills will convert for R Factor 2?
Well, yeah, I think so. But as I mentioned before, people who drive R Factor 1 might have a more aggressive style than R Factor 2. So it might all go wrong for them, depending on how aggressive they actually are. But I'd say definitely keep a lookout for Lars Brugman. He's been doing very well in Formula Challenge, and starting fifth here on the harder tyre than everyone else ahead of him, and even most of the people behind him. Then he's in the best position to actually mix things up and surprise a few people.
Yep, I would agree with that. Lars clearly being able to get something from that harder compound tyre, really make it work well for him. And if he can make it last, I mean, this is the big proviso. Personally, in World GT, I can't make those endurance tyres last. So that's always been an issue for me. But clearly, if he can make them work and last, he's going to be in a very strong position. Having said that, I mean, so we've got a 27-car grid, as we mentioned before. We've got plenty of drivers in there, some real quality. So yeah, anyone could throw an upset here. And as we've said, it's a long old race, and anything could happen. And this being motor racing, or virtual motor racing at the very least, it does. Anyway, we're on to our final 90 or so seconds of our first warm-up session here in the Atlantic Series. And just to recap, it will be a rolling start. We will have 46 laps listed on the overlay for you this evening. The first lap, however, will be used on that rolling start, so it will not count as a racing lap. And all of the races, in fact, in the Atlantic Series this year will be 50% or approximately 50% of their real-world IndyCar counterpart. So the race, which was held in the Verizon IndyCar Championship a little while ago at Barber's Motorsport Park this year for real, that was over 90 laps, hence we're at 45. So interestingly, that race was dominated by fuel saving of all things, especially towards the end, where we had the leader a good few seconds a lap slower than a charging driver in third place. Unfortunately, names escape me at this point. But very close, right at the very end, we had one car using all of the fuel it could, charging, and one driver, well, in this case, holding on to the very end with a very clever bit of tactical fuel saving. So we have to see if that's true of our drivers, and well, hopefully it will cause a little spice and a little bit of interest in the final closing stages of our race here this evening. Anyway, our drivers now just finishing their final few moments here of warm-up. We've got a few seconds to go before the session completes, and we will form up on our grid here for the first race of the GPVWC Atlantic Series. So one thing I will mention, if you're watching this evening and have any questions that perhaps you may want to field to any of our drivers for post-race interviews, or any comments or anything you'd like us to consider or chat about during the broadcast, feel free to tweet those in. We are at GPVWC Live. Use the hashtag GPVWC. We'll be keeping an eye on the Twitters, and would love to know what you're thinking going into the very first open wheel series here on R-Factor 2 for the GPVWC. So exciting times, and hopefully we'll have a cracking race, I'm sure we will, before us. So we are just waiting for our final few drivers now to complete their laps, which I think they actually have done. We've just got our race director, Chris Williamson. Thank you, Chris, for helping out as always. Just clarifying a few final pieces with our drivers this evening, and we will be moving into our race session anytime now. I think everything has now been sorted out. I think everyone understands what everyone needs to do, and we will be on our way anytime now. So Tom says keep an eye on Lars Brugman. I would not disagree with that. I would say also keep an eye on Danny Asbury. He's been very, very quick. In fact, he's set the fastest lap in warm-up, almost a qualifying lap in warm-up. And if he's been doing that on full fuel, that's quite a lap time indeed. So plenty of people to keep an eye on. We've had our fast 6. We have to see what the remaining 21 can do in the race. So, literally just waiting now, I think, on everyone to put a confirmation that everyone understands how the session will be run, and we'll be on our way. So, Tom, any thoughts? If you were driving out there today, what would your thinking be? Obviously, depending on strategy, of course. Would you be thinking, okay, take a few laps to get into the swing of things, or would you just go full, flat out and off you go straight from the start?
I'd be very cautious going into turn 1. I'll say that. I've had a few times my race ruined before even reaching turn 1, and it is not a nice thing. But here, if you kind of get wide at turn 1 and someone's on your inside and you just touch that grass, then you're just going to slide off past turn 2 as well, and even cause even more carnage. But yeah, so the first couple of laps, you've got to be cautious. You don't want to take people out, and you don't want to ruin your race right there. But once you start getting into the groove, that's when you can really push.
Yep. So as our Factor Man rings out for the very first round of the Atlantic Series here at the GPVWC, we'll now wait for our drivers to go out to grid, which they are now doing. The track temperature and ambient temperature, 27 degrees. That's a little higher than it has been previously, so we'll have to see how our drivers deal with that one. But we're now just waiting for everyone to grid up, and we will talk you through your grid for the very first GPVWC Atlantic Series race here from Barber's Motorsport Park. What we'll do is we'll count down as everyone will now be released onto the rolling formation lap. We will have in pole position Ruud Heasterbeek. He will be driving for Walk Racing. Following him will be Jarl Tyen for Team Proline, and behind him will be Nick Rowland for Midnight Motorsports. Then following him in P4 will be Danny Asbury. He is driving this evening for Walk. And Lars Brugman, our man to keep an eye on that harder tyre, We're starting P5 for Team Proline. P6, our fastest of the final 6, was Nico Barkley. He'll be driving for Scuderia Basilica this evening. And then we have the charging American Sven de Vries. He will be driving Satellite Racing starting in P7. David Yunt in the second Scuderia Basilica car will be starting in P8 with Pedro Gomes in Madrid starting in P9. And rounding out our top 10 for Simtek Kyoto Motorsport or Sport is Luke Walsh.
Oh, do you want me to do 11th downwards?
Please do.
Sorry, I was not aware. 11th is Maurice Bracan for YTF1. 12th, Roy Schroten for Drake Racing. 13th, Scott Beresford leading TSA. 14th, Lewis McGlade for TSA. 15th, Mike Bell for Smile Power Racing. 16th, Jonathan Holmes for Positive Sim Racing. 17th, Sherwin van der Sloot for Sim Tech Jota Sport. 18th, Alexander van der Woude for Smile Power Racing. 19th, Reese Gardner for Hins Motorsport. And 20th, Borna Garcia for Positive Sim Racing.
Then we have P21 for Midnight, Tom van der Voort. The pair of Mighty Force are then our next drivers, Paul Joseph and Paul Watkins. They are P22 and 23. Ben Willis for High Speed Racing will be starting P24 with Bart de Vos, second satellite car starting P25. Sam Jones for Arrow International starting P27. Unfortunately, we have already lost a driver, Menno Klon for High Speed Racing. As we are racing, goodness me, they were quick on that formation lap. And they are away. Easterbeek held the lead there through the start finish with Tyne right behind him. And we had a few cars off already into the barriers before they even got round to complete the formation lap. But as they're now running through the first sector, it is Easterbeek from Tyne from Asbury with Roland in hot pursuit. A good start for our leaders and a good gaggle of cars all making their way through the midfield.
Yes, Maurice Bracan's just rounding turn 4 now, and he's got no front wing, so he's going to have to try and coast that back to the pits. Quite sharpish, so there must have been some carnage at the back. I don't really know what happened, but there was definitely something going on.
Yes, indeed. A bit of drama there for him, which is unfortunate, but it's a long race. Plenty of time to recover. So as our drivers are making their way, all ready to complete lap 1 of 45, we have Easterbeek from Tyne from Asbury. They are our leading trio, and they are already building a gap from Lars Brugman and Nick Rowland, who are having their own private scrap down in P4 and P5. Interestingly, Sven de Vries actually on that alternate tyre has got past Brugman on that first lap. So clearly these alternate tyres, these option tyres are working well in the early stages, but we'll have to see if they burn out quickly or if Brugman has played a strategic blinder. Anyway, he will now have David Yunt P7 for company, but just looking a little further back, we've got plenty of little scraps. We've got Mike Bell. He's had a great start up to P11. He's just got by the TSA driver Scott Beresford. And just behind that pair, we have Alexander van der Woude. He's got a train of cars behind him. We've got Van der Sloot, Gardner, Luke Walsh. Unfortunately, he's gone a little bit backwards off the start there. And we've got Tom van der Voort recovering from the back of the grid. So good start for van der Voort there. We've got Gomez getting in on the action as well as they're running through the very high speed left-right section there through the second sector. Meanwhile, our leaders are completing their second lap. The field spread already starting to build. And one thing to keep an eye on throughout this race is this is a tiny, compact little race course. Traffic may prove a huge factor as people start to make their way through and get their pit stops in. Anyway, the closest fight we have at this point is between Schroten and Barkley. They're running through corner 2 as I speak. Yeah,
just ahead of Schroten, Jarl Tien in 7th. He went wide and turned 12 and 13 and went off and rejoined just ahead of the Schroten-Barkley battle. I see Barkley, he ran a bit wide going down into turn 6. And he's right on the back of Schroten now. He might have a look into the chicane. Oh no, he's backed off there. He's thought about it might be a bit too risky, but he's got Lewis McGlade right over him now.
Yep, a little bit risky trying to move down there. Have to be quite reliant on the driver you're racing to give you space. Oh, a little wiggle there from Schroten. Just
Sven de Vries in 6th round. He's round at turn 14.
Oh,
I was looking at Lars Brugman. He managed to get past. He's down in Sven de Vries is down into 14th, 15th now, dropping down the order due to that spin, and that might have also wrecked his tyres.
Yes, unfortunately, yes, the exit there of turn 13 is treacherous. You can't see it. Normally, when you've realised you've run out of road, you're already over it and heading towards a wall. So well held there from Sven to keep that one, all the wheels on his wagon. Unfortunately, we've had a couple more retirements. We've had Holmes, Bracken and Gardner all retire. We are on lap me, lap 3 of 45. Our leader still is Heasterby. He is followed by Amsbury, and Roland is a further 3, almost 4 seconds behind our leading duo. But Brugman, actually, he's been able to benefit on his harder tyre. He's been able to get up to P4 with that spin from De Vries. So we have our leading group of 6 or so drivers, all making a good start here for the first race of this season from the Atlantic Series. Yeah,
so it's also interesting to see Lars Brugman also keeping up with Nick Rowland. You would have thought that the people on the option tyre would have just pulled away like Danny Asbury and Ruud Heasterby seem to have done. But Lars Brugman actually keeping with Nick Rowland. He's within about half a second to a second, which is looking quite good for whatever strategy he seems to be running at the moment.
Indeed, Van der Wilder had a spin, and I believe that was Walsh. Yes, unfortunately, Walsh has spun. Again, exit of turn 13, and he lost his rear wing and front wing. So that is unfortunately him out of this race. Very early going, but this Barber's track is very unforgiving. Almost a street circuit, the proximity of the walls. So unfortunately, he's out of this one, but I'm sure he'll be back for the next one. Anyway.
Paul Watkins in 21st has also spun it. I think that's down at turn 2? Oh no, it's again 12 and 13. Those seem to be tricky corners for everyone who seem to be battling with people. And yeah, he's down in 20th. He's about 20 seconds back, I'd say, from the nearest car, but he's keeping going. You've got to admire that.
Absolutely. I mean, it's also critical at this stage. Okay, yes, you might not be racing the car, but it'll give you the opportunity to understand how the car works in a race scenario. Of course, you can do all the practice you like, but there's nothing quite like racing another set of cars. And you never know, you might get the opportunity to try out a few different lines, see what works with the car, what doesn't. It's all valuable time that you can invest. There's no such thing as a wasted lap. Anyway, keeping an eye, actually interesting, Lars Brugman, clearly as the tyres are starting to warm up and get up to pressure, he's finding all sorts of time, and he is closing up now on currently P3 Nick Rowland. And the gap last time around was around the 2-second mark. He's got that down to just about 0.6 of a second. Goodness me, he's got a great exit there out of turn 5, down towards the chicane and hairpin of turns 7 and 8. All very close, very tidy from both of them as they now run through the very high speed turns 9 and 10. And here we come down to 11 and 12. We've seen quite a bit of drama through here. Hopefully we won't have any this time around. And actually, these cars are going so quick, I'm pretty sure the front or the left side of the car actually gets a little bit of air going through the apex of turn 11. So very, very quick stuff from these drivers. Our gaps are all staying, I want to say, actually relatively close. We've got a nice scrap between P1 and P2, between Heasterby and Asbury still. They are actually both driving for walk, aren't they? So it's going absolutely to plan for walk racing. P1 and P2, you can't do much better than that. And they've got a nice fight now developing for P3, 4, 5 and 6. They're all pretty much together on this first straight here down into turn 5. So early going, plenty of action to be had.
Yeah, I was looking at Brugman going into turn 12 and 13 when he had the run on Nick Rowland, and he must have seen what happened to Sven de Vries because he just backed out and thought, you know, I'll be a bit cautious here. I won't risk it and risk doing what Sven de Vries did earlier. So he's obviously thinking whilst in that car at the moment and waiting for his opportunity to pounce.
Absolutely, yeah. Also worth calling out, actually, other, if you're alternate strategy runners, those who started on the prime tyre. Of course, we had Brugman, who's doing a great job up at P4, really hounding the back of Rowland at this point. We also have the pair of TSA cars. They have moved up the order quite nicely in the early going. They are up to P8, P9, that Beresford and McGlade, respectively. So they've got plenty of clear air, beg your pardon, ahead of them. So if they can keep those tyres, may put them in a strong position towards the end of the race. We'll have to see how that pans out. Anyway, interestingly, Jarl Tyen recovering from that spin earlier on the last lap around, got by Brugman. So a move done there, evidently. And now we have Junt. He is driving for Scuderia Basilica this evening. He is on the alternate tyre, and he's now hounding the back of Brugman. So I think if Brugman's going to try and eke out everything from these tyres and run really deep into this race, I think it might be wise for him just to let him go.
Oh, there's a spin, De Vos. I think that's 18th position. Yes, De Vos and Ben Willis. Garcia. I think they had a bit of a coming together at turn 2. Because I was watching Paul Watkins, who's currently a lap down, and there was just smoke ahead, and it was De Vos being put around. Let's see if I can get a quick replay. Yes, it was Garcia just tapped the back of him and put De Vos round, unfortunately.
That's a pity for DeVos, but as there's still a long old way to go in this race, plenty of time to recover a result, that is for sure. Anyway, as we are now moving on to lap 10, or I beg your pardon, lap 9 completed for our leaders. Our order is Easterbeek from Amesbury, Roland from Tyre, and Brugman rounds out our top 5. As we've now got Tyan and Roland, these two fighting over P3 and P4. Tyan trying a cheeky move there into turn 5. Nothing on though, Roland covered the line very nicely. They now run down towards 7 and 8. Very tricky section here. You really want to take all of the curb you can, but in these cars, they do not like hitting those big bumps. They can really unsettle you and cause you a problem, but these two have done that very nicely. And critically, got a great exit onto this very long, effectively straight. You can take it flat in these cars as they run through 12 and 13. Lovely line from both of them. Roland a little tidier, taking a little more of the apex, but interestingly...
John Sixth has gone round. He's lost his... Oh, I think he might be out. He's lost his rear right wheel and his rear wing. He's rolling onto the track. I don't know if... No, he's retired before anybody got there. So that's David John out, and he was in 6th position. He must be absolutely gutted, seeing as it's only like 9 laps into this race.
It is, I feel, going to be one of those races where it will be a high attrition rate. Everyone getting used to the cars and stakes. I think a little bit of conservatism and not pushing 100% will get a lot of drivers a long way into the races. Here we go. A nice move here for P3 and P4. A little bit of contact on the second exit there through turn 5. Roland being quite robust in his defence. But Tyan not quite alongside to get that one done. But Tyan, he found a little gap on the inside. He put his nose there and made Roland really have to think about getting a good exit. He did just about, but these two almost running nose to tail as they exit turn 8 here on lap 9 of 45. Roland defending in the middle. Here comes Tyan up the inside. Oh, goodness me, had to back out of that one very late. And these two going to scrap away. Interestingly, Tyan there on the way through turn 12, put down a massive load of rubber. So clearly he is pushing very hard, but that's overheating his tyres. Those tyres do not come down in temperature for a good few corners. So if you overcook it, not only may you flat spot a tyre if you're on the brakes, you may take away any opportunity through the next few corners, as well as cost yourself a load of tyre rubber as well. So a considered move, I think, will be required from Tyan to so much tighter there through turn 2, all over the back of Roland. Let's see, can he do anything down into turn 5? He's having a look, he's up the inside, he's later on the brakes. Oh, and that's, oh goodness me, well held, but not quite enough space there for Tyan to get that one done. He's going to have to find out another way around Roland there, I think.
Yeah, you were saying about those flat spots, you can actually feel them in this mod in R Factor 2. And of course, when he goes into a braking zone, the tyre's just going to find that flat spot again, and it's just going to make it worse and worse and worse. So you've really got to be careful with how you treat these tyres at the moment.
Absolutely, you do not want to have to run around for any significant amount of time with your wheel shaking. It will shake you to the core, and I can tell you that from personal experience. But anyway,
yeah, same.
It's certainly not a pleasant experience. It's certainly one which can completely ruin your race, so it's critical to maintain your tyres to the best of your ability, as well as obviously trying to race to the best of your ability as well. R Factor 2 asking many more questions of our drivers' abilities and being able to manage their way through a race. Anyway, the order starting to stabilise now as our leaders are starting slowly to catch some traffic. We'll return to them. We've got Watkins and I think that's Willis ahead of our leader, Easterbeek. They'll be getting the blue flags there in the Mighty 4th car. And what is Willis driving here? He is driving the satellite car. Oh, I beg your pardon, high-speed racing car. Interestingly, we've only been running now for 11 completed laps, and we've already lost 6 cars. So a very high rate of attrition. As here comes Easterbeek. Goodness me, you can see the difference there in the potential of that walk car and the high-speed car that Willis is driving clean around the outside of turn 14. Very brave moves. Oh, I think that was a bit of damage I just heard, or a little crash. I'll have to see if that who that was, or if that was just a mistake on my part. But certainly, these early stages, you want to avoid trouble, that's for sure. And by looks of it, Willis, lovely bit of back marking there, letting our leaders through and allowing them to maintain their race.
Yeah, and the gap between first and second has opened up. A few laps ago, it was 1.1 seconds. It's now up to 2 seconds. So
I beg your pardon, I've just realised who that drama was for. It was for Nick Rowland from 3rd place. He has lost his front wing. He's lost his rear right. He's been able to limp home back to the pit lane. We'll have to see what his pit crew can do. He's entering the pit lane now. He's down in P12. So first of all, fair play for getting the car home. Oh, unfortunately, he spun it in the pit lane. He's got no rear right to lean on, but he's got that one pointed the right way. and we'll have to see if he's able to get that one repaired. He's got himself to his pit stall. Oh goodness, he's in a parked car. That's going to be an issue. Is he going to be able to get that one back? No,
he is retired.
Not. He's retired. So huge commiserations to Roland there. What a good effort to bring that car back into the pit. But unfortunately, that's him out of the race on lap 13 of 45.
Again, it was corners 12 and 13. That seems to be like the Achilles heel for this car. I guess it's the change in height that the cars are just bottoming out and just skidding. So this track probably not most suited for this car, since it's very low ride height and will bottom out quite easily on bumps.
Well, they manage it fine in real life, and funnily enough, I mean, so this was even earmarked at one point to do Formula 1 testing for the USF1 team, which was meant to start up a few years ago. So I don't think it's a matter of the car. I think it's perhaps just a matter of, with perhaps the heavy fuel, perhaps just having an effect on the way the car is handling through this section. I mean, as you say, it's very, very difficult. It's blind on entry and exit. And if you've just taken even a mile or two an hour, a little bit more through turn 11 and through turn 12, you'll find yourself just running out of road on the exit, and there is a wall very close by, and I fear that's what's caught out several of our drivers so far. Unfortunately, a few finding out the hard way that if you make a mistake in these open wheel Indy cars, you will not live long to tell the story. So anyway, with that effect, that bumped everyone up a little bit. So we have Tyan into the pits for Proline. He's our first stopper. We're on lap 14 of 45. Been able to get to a third distance. How interesting. So he's now in the pit lane. We'll keep an eye on him. He's currently in P4. That promotes Brugman up to P3, and we'll have to see, does he do tyres and fuel? He certainly appears to have been lifted by his team. And he's out again on the alternate compound. So does that mean he'll be able to get to the end on this set of tyres? And has he just brimmed the tank up? We'll have to see. There's no restriction on having to use 2 compounds of tyre, by the way. You can use as many of whatever you like. As he comes out the pit lane behind McGlade, a little bit of oversteer there from Tyan as he now tries to get the car all warm and ready to race, because he now has the freshest tyres of anyone out there on track. Let's see what lap times he can do.
I would say he'd be looking at stopping again, because, you know, 14, 15 laps in, it's really too early to actually kind of do something. It's not even half distance. I mean, if he was just filling up the car, then, you know, you'd want to kind of do that latest, kind of put off your competitors, saying, you know, I can go this distance on what I've got. So it might have been a tyre change, and if it is, then, you know, he's looking to stop around lap 30 again and then go to the end then.
Yeah, it's certainly an interesting call, but also let's remember, Team Proline, I think, we're at liberty to play with the strategies and ask the question of Asbury and Heasterbeek, our walk-leading duo, to play the strategy call. We'll have Tyan. He's already been able to make up a place on McGlade on his outlap on cold tyres, admittedly much stickier and pressure tyre. But Brugman is clearly running long on the prime tyre. He's making it work so far. He's doing good, consistent lap time. We'll have to see if he's able to continue to put pressure. And it's really going to ask a question of Asbury and Heasterbeek. What can they do? Can they cover off 1 and 2, or will they have to play strategic to get the most points for the team? We'll have to wait and see.
Indeed, and Brugman has now inherited that 12-second gap that Tien had before he pitted. So he's got loads of clear space. He can pretty much do whatever he wants within reason, of course. But you could just put in fast lap after fast lap and try and catch up to the top 2.
Second stopper, Paul Joseph for the mighty 4th. He's in the pit lane, just a lap after Tien there. We'll have to see what he does. He has been lifted as well. And interestingly, it looks like a new set of alternate tyres for him as well. So the fuel tank, very, very marginal. You could complete around, I believe, 38 or so laps with a full tank. So interestingly, with the fuel they've put in, if they have brimmed the tank, they have now got enough fuel to get to the end. Can they make the tyres last? We can see. Anyway, with the shuffle around as Tyan's in again. Tyan is pitting in again.
I was just checking his replay because he was shooting down the order, and I think he made a mistake. Has he got a front wing? He does. He might have some damage.
No, by the looks of it, he was very, very, very late on the brakes down into turn 14, the very final corner. It so happens that the pit lane entry is there, and I think he just found himself in the pit lane. So he's had to come in and do a stop. Perhaps he's decided to just rim the tank a little more as well, who knows? But I don't think that was planned. I think he just got a little wide and got out onto the pit lane entrance and just went with it. So,
or maybe he messed up in his first stop and had to do another one to correct the mistake.
Who knows? It's all go as we now have DeVos and Garcia in the pit lane. They've come in together, so this is going to be interesting. Let's see if there's a difference here for P13 and P14. DeVos now stopping in his box. Great race from DeVos, actually, starting from the back of the grid. Garcia is on his way, though. Where is DeVos? DeVos is still stopped, so a longer stop there for DeVos. Garcia is on his way. I think that was just fuel, no tyres for him there. So he's on his way, rejoining in P14.
Well, the interesting thing is most of our kind of stop knowledge has come from World GT. Of course, World GT, it takes longer to do the tyres and the fuel, whereas these, the fuel can go in a hell of a lot quicker, and so can the tyres, because it's just one real wheel nut, isn't it? And they can do all of them at the same time. So I think people are deciding, you know, we'll change tyres now, we'll wait till the fuel burns off and then just change the fuel, or add more fuel. Why would you change fuel? But yeah, it's interesting to see that Garcia had a slower stop than DeVos.
Indeed. Perhaps just a slightly different methodology at this phase in the race. Perhaps DeVos just deciding to brim that tank and make sure he can get home safely. Garcia perhaps willing to risk it a bit more. Who knows? We'll have to find out after the race. But one person who's certainly on the march is Brugman. Interestingly, he took a 10th out of the gap to the leader last time around. The gap between him and P2, which is Danny Asbury, remains at 12 seconds. But he's building a gap to the P4 driver of Barclay. So he's sitting very, very pretty. And out of interest, actually, we now have Scott Beresford, who started on that prime tyre. He started down in the midfield. He's been, of course, making his way through the field, and he's been a little helped out there with a few drivers having dramas of their own. But he is now catching at a rate of knots, Barclay. So we've got an interesting battle here. What's better, a used option tyre or a used prime tyre with perhaps a bit more life in it? Well, I think we're going to find out before too long. Good exits from both of them as they run through turn 8, down into 9 and 10. Not much between them there, but I feel that as they go into the slower sections, Beresford will be able to take more and more time, both looking mega committed there through turns 11 and 12.
Yes, I've just been notified by our race director, thank you very much, Chris, that Jarl Tien was actually speeding in the pit lane. So you had to survey, I think it was stop-go penalty, which is unfortunate for him, but, you know, rules is rules, you must abide by them, and if you break them, you do get punished. Absolutely.
Well, he's fallen foul there of the pit lane speed limits, and, well, that is a significant amount of time he's just lost, and he's going to have to all of a sudden make back. So with that, he came out in P10. As we have Van der Sloot, I believe for Jota, he's now pitting in on lap 18 of 45. Currently, everyone below P10 has been lapped by our leaders. They still march on their option tyre, so clearly they're making them last. The Walk Racing boys. Brugman, interesting, lost a little bit of time last time around to our leader. But the gap remains around the 12-13 second mark between himself and second place. So they're doing around about the same lap time. We'll have to see how far those Walk boys can go.
Yes, Ruud Heespeak just seems to be in the world of his own. I mean, he's just pulling out lap time over Danny Asbury at the moment. And he's got a good, almost 4-second gap.
Barclay into the pits. Sorry to talk over you there, but Barclay's decided he's had enough of these tyres. He releases Scott Beresford in return. I think his teammate McGlade as well for TSA might get by as well. So here we go, Barclay, he's in his box. What does he take? Does he just take fuel or does he take tyres? We don't know. It seems a pretty nice quick stop though. Tyres, I'd say, definitely been done. The car was completely lifted and he is on his way. So he is on lap, or he has completed 20 laps. He's just on to his 21st now, as he has a couple of cars just exiting, or we've got DeVos and Willis ahead of him. He's now exiting the pit lane. And we'll have to see how far he can now go. It's interesting, we've got a real spread of strategies, it would appear. Everyone so far, though, who's pitted, I believe, has taken that option tyre. So we'll have to see. Perhaps it will last as the race goes on, more rubber comes down. You might just get a bit more out of it in terms of its tyre life.
Well, remember, there is that issue where they can't actually change the tyre compound, so it might actually leak into the race, and whoever starts on or qualifies on the option tyre has to use that for the entire race. So it'd be interesting to see if Scott Beresford, Lars Brugman and Lewis McGlade and anyone else running the harder tyre actually has to stay on that during their stop, as Van der Welde goes off track getting to the pit lane. He's got that sorted though. But yeah, it'll be very interesting to see if they have to stay on that tyre and they decide to stay out longer than actually, you know, make a stop.
Very interesting. To my knowledge, it was just a factor of that you couldn't change tyres between qualifying and the race. I didn't think it was a matter of you were locked to that tyre for the whole race as well. Well, we'll have to wait and see. In any case, our leader, Heespeak, is into the pit lane. He's clearly had enough of his tyres. He's completed 21 laps. He's about to start his 22nd. His teammate, Danny Asbury, carries on, so they're not going to try and double stop or anything like that, or stack up. He is getting a fresh set of tyres. He will be getting refueled as well. And we'll have to see if Lars Brugman will be able to pass him. And yes, he can indeed. He goes by. Brugman inherits second. Brugman inherits second place. But here comes Heasterbeek. By the looks of it, a fresh set of those alternate tyres, those option sticky tyres. He has Schroeter back marker ahead of him. But Brugman is just a little way up the road. So it's now up to Heasterbeek. Can he get by Brugman? Does Brugman have anything left to defend with? Can Brugman perhaps only do a one stop? Can everyone else only make it on a two? We're going to find out. As McGlade pits, I think he's our first of our prime runners, our standard tyre runners. He comes into the pits from P5, so he's only been able to get those tyres to work for 20 or so laps as well. So he's in the pits. We'll have to see what tyres he swaps out to. Barkley passes him, so does De Vries. He has been put down on the floor and he is away. He is on another set of those prime tyres. And on the way he goes. So he's clearly liking those tyres, working them well. So perhaps you're right, Tom. Perhaps they can only use that compound for the race. We will have to wait and see.
Indeed, and turns 12 and 13 claimed another victim as Garcia.
Brugman and Asbury in.
As Garcia basically went off. I think he clipped the barrier, but he's still going. He's just let Sven de Vries go. So you know, as long as he's seems to be fine with the car, then it's all good.
Very good. So Brugman and Asbury in. Asbury a nice quick stop. He's on his way. Brugman remains on the prime tyre. Asbury remains on a new set of the option tyre. However, Heasterbeek came through. Of course, he pitted in a lap earlier. And to my eye, I think he's been able to gain a little bit of an undercut there on his rivals. Well, he's sitting very pretty at this phase in the race. Clearly making good inroads. He's got plenty of clear road ahead of him. Not many cars to lap. So he's clearly in a very strong place. Scott Beresford through the pit stops. He's been able to get up to P3. He, I believe, is the last now of our prime runners who has not yet pitted in. So he's on his way. Will we see him in soon? We'll have to wait and see.
Seeing as Danny Asbury and Ruud Heasterbeek seem to go one lap after each other, I'd have to say that Beresford's in this lap. Because I would have thought that if they're on the same sort of strategy, then it would be very close. If not, you know, one lap gap as he is coming into the pits now.
Indeed he is. So clearly the teams are working similar strategies, one lap after one another. So we'll have to see where Beresford comes out after this one. I believe he was ahead of his teammate as Lewis came into pit earlier. Oh, and he's missed his box. Goodness, good recovery, but that's obviously not what you want. Clearly those tyres well out of life. So he's got a fresh set by the looks of it of that prime compound tyre. Fuel in the car and off he goes. So he was racing Barkley before this pit stop phase. Where is Barkley on the road?
He's coming down to turn one now.
Indeed, he's just passed him. Unfortunately, I think that little mistake there from Beresford has just cost them a
and Sven de Vries has got managed. Oh no, sorry, that was someone else coming out the pits. Sven de Vries is caught right up to the back of Beresford now, and it coming around to turn 4 might just be within the toe for Beresford.
I don't think that de Vries has pitted at this point, so he's clearly enjoying the tyres, and well, he's got the alternate tyre on. He'll have more grip than Beresford. We'll have to see if he can do anything with it. Tian, though, recovering from that drive-through, he's back up to P7. McGlade in P8 behind him. Pedro Gomez not a great distance behind McGlade either in P9. And we have Van der Sloot for Jota. He rounds out our top 10. All top 10 runners on the lead lap. Everyone else has been lapped.
Yes, remember Sven de Vries did have that incident, the spin up at turn 13. So his tyres will probably be looking worse than anyone else on the track at the moment. So he's still continuing to go around, basically decides not to pit yet. But you know, if he can catch Beresford, then you know, then his tyres will probably be in a really good shape. But I think Beresford's just going to start pulling away, so he's got the fresh rubber and maybe a little bit more fuel, or and we'll probably start pulling away now.
This will be the interesting factor. Who has brimmed the tank and plans to try and make it to the very end if the tyres will allow it? And who has decided to go with mega-like qualifying style runs throughout the race? Well, we'll have to find out as things pan out. We've completed 26 laps of our 45. We are over half race distance. Heasterbeek continues to be our leader, and sure enough, over that pit stop phase, Heasterbeek gained around 4 seconds to his teammate Asbury. So Heasterbeek really putting himself in the driving seat for this one. Brugman remains in P3. He's just crossing the start-finish line, and he lost about 5 seconds to Easterbeek through the pit stop phase as well. So yes, Easterbeek has absolutely nailed that first round. If we'll get another round of pit stops, we don't quite know at this phase, so we'll have to see. But everyone, I think, focusing at this point on their own race. Everyone actually in the top 4 has clear road ahead of them, so I think we'll have a few laps of flat-out qualifying style running from them. We'll see who can make an inroads into their respective gaps.
Indeed, as I think Bart DeVos has just retired. He's in the pits and his classed him as DNF. I don't quite know what's happened. Oh, I've just pressed the replay button, and there's a bit of an incident between him and Van der Woude. They're both off at, again, turn 13, 14. So that's claiming a lot of people this weekend, or this evening. Yeah,
it is indeed, unfortunately. A tricky corner, and by looks of it, Van der Woude just had a moment on his own, and unfortunately, DeVos just ran into him. So a real unfortunate turn of events there for both of those drivers. Van der Woude in the pits, being repaired at this point. He is 4 laps down, but he's still going. And at this point, points do pay to 15th. So everything is to play for. So still points on the table for all of our runners if they can carry on. But certainly at this phase in the race, the top 10 looking mighty pretty. Everyone below that has been lapped. Van der Sloot will be the next car to be lapped. We'll just keep an eye on where our leader is.
6th and 7th, Jarl Tien trying to move down Sven de Vries into turn 1, and I think he's just decided to back out and not risk it. But he's right behind for turn 2 and the straight of turn 4 to 5.
Your prediction?
Tries on the inside of turn 3, and he's got the run. Oh, bit of contact there in turn 4, and I think Tien's got that done.
Yes, I'd say so.
Unless Sven can get the toe down onto bit of a wiggle there by Tien. But I think he's got that locked out. There's too much of a gap between him and de Vries now. And I think de Vries might need to come in soon for a fresh set of tyres.
Yep, lining up those rears will certainly burn the rubber, that's for sure. But Tien clearly in no mood for hanging about. So he's got that move done very nicely. The sheer, more grip, more speed through turn 2, set that one up. And he got by de Vries nicely. A little bit of contact we don't want to see, but thankfully nothing came of that contact. So yes, I would happen to agree. De Vries certainly looking a little more ragged at this point. We'll have to see if he hangs out there much longer, as we've got a car into the pits. Who is that? It's Tien. Goodness me, so perhaps that's why he wanted to get that one done. He wanted to try and build a little bit of a gap. So we'll have to see, does he take on tyres and fuel? He was our first stopper. He stopped around lap 14. We're on 28, or beg your pardon, 27 race laps completed. And he's now in the pits. By the looks of it, he's getting a fresh set of tyres. Does he get some more fuel as well? Well, who knows? We might see 3 or 4 stops from our drivers today.
Indeed, and this is already his 3rd stop today.
Yep, with his drive-through, of course. So he's really going to have a lot to do in that Proline car to make his way up the order. As he is...
Asbury! Asbury! Oh, that was close. I think that's a dangerous join by Tien, and just come out right in front of Asbury as Asbury was looking to lap him. And just contacting the front of Asbury. Luckily, he managed to hold it. But that must have been a really scary moment for Danny Asbury there.
Absolutely, and critically, that's a lot of a big slide he's just had, so that's not going to have done his tyre wear no good. But yeah, by the looks of it, Tien, perhaps unsighted, perhaps didn't quite catch him, blind spot, who knows, but yeah, just a slight tap, and yeah, that's how unstable these cars can be. Yes, thankfully everyone's still running, but yeah, I think Tien is risking it a little too much there. But
Sven de Vries has put it into the wall into the pit lane. He must have outbraked himself and just gone straight into the... Oh, he lost his front wing. I don't quite know how. He might have... yeah, by the looks of it, he went straight on into the back of Watkins, I think. And into the tyre wall at the end of the start of the pit lane.
That's a pity. Well, you'll have to get that repaired, obviously. That's Tien's out. Tien is out. He's broken his suspension, and look at that. It's turn 11 and 12. He went a little wiggly through there, and he's gone in backwards into the wall. So he's lost his rear wing. His suspension is toast, and unfortunately he's had to park that one. So Tien out of the race. He will drop down the order. Everyone else below P10 will gain a position. Real drama there for Tien. Clearly the race, as it is developing, drivers really wanting to push and get the gaps down, and well, one slight error and that's you in trouble. So everyone below P10, as I said, gaining a place there, and as it currently is, that leaves us with 16, I think, runners and riders still going. So who knows, you might get to a point that if you finish, you get some points.
And Scott Best was right on the back of Barclay for 4th position. Barclay got a bit of a slide on through turn 3, And Beresford looking to go around the outside, maybe cut back and get the straight line speed down onto the chicane, and he seems to have it. He's pulled out. Can he actually make the stick? Was he going to back out? Oh, he's going for it.
Big wiggle there. Big wiggle there from Barkley. Clearly struggling. Beresford, here he comes. Up on the inside. He's on the racing line. Barkley defending the inside. Lock up there. Down into 5. Double apex. Very tricky to get it right. Barkley, a little wiggle, and here comes Beresford. He's got a much cleaner exit. He's going to try up the inside, down into the chicane and hairpin. Oh, he's been given the space. Lovely racing from these two, and Barkley has conceded that one. So good move there done by the TSA driver. Very mature driving from both of them. Not putting either of them at risk. So good stuff there from both of them.
I hate to say it, mate, but I think you've got your replay on.
Oh, mercy. Well, there you are. I'm behind the times, but it was still a good replay, so I feel that my commentary was valid.
Why not watch it twice, eh?
Absolutely not. Absolutely. Anyway, so that was a move for position. Beresford, clearly he's making these prime tyres work well. And he's got himself up to P4 with that one. So he's clearly enjoying himself in that car, in this IndyCar around this Barber's track. So it's good stuff. Interesting that Barkley hasn't pitted. So perhaps that was just a poor lap or two from him there. So his next person to keep an eye out for will be McGlade, who's just being lapped by Heasterbeek. Goodness me. The pace of Heasterbeek and Walk Racing has meant that everyone up to P6 now has been lapped. It's incredible pace on display here from Heasterbeek and the Walk Racing team, clearly having a good run. Time for a shout out though to Simtech Motorsport. They are on Twitter. Unfortunately, tough race there for Luke Walsh, having a moment very early on in the race, damaging his car. Sherwin's still running though, and he's up to P8 now. So good results there for the Simtech team if Luke can keep going, which of course we hope he can.
Indeed. The key point here is going to be actually bringing the car home. Turn 12 and 13, claiming a lot of people today. And if you can make that turn, then you should be in for a good amount of points.
Absolutely, and actually to a degree, it's a nice metaphor for what I've found is the difference between R Factor and R Factor 2. R Factor is very forgiving. If you make a mistake, you can get away with that mistake 9 times out of 10. R Factor 2 is really not like that. It comes down to the fact of, oh look, you slide the tyre, you'll flat spot it, overheat it or whatever. And drivers clearly pushing very, very hard, nothing wrong with that. But perhaps with R Factor 2, the same mentality of 100% pushing all the time is not one which will convert into race results. And unfortunately, we've had quite a high attrition rate so far this evening. So perhaps something we'll see our drivers adapt for next round. Next round will be at Indianapolis on the infield section. And that will be in 2 weeks' time. But we'll get to that after the race. Our leaders, or our leading trio, I should say, is Heasterbeek from Asby from Brooklyn. That hasn't changed. The gap, however, growing every lap. Heasterbeek clearly in the zone. He's got 12 seconds to his teammates in P2, so he's clearly enjoying himself this evening.
Indeed, as Paul Joseph pits for, I think it's his second stop. Yes, it must be his second stop. Yeah, he was right up behind Garcia, and it looked like there was going to be a good battle between them, but Paul just pulled into the pits and has probably got a new set of tyres, probably a bit more fuel, and ready to go out again.
Absolutely. Well, perhaps he might be able to make it to the end here. He's timed that one quite nicely. We've got about 20 or so laps to go, so his second stop looking quite good there. So we'll have to see what he does. He's now leaving the pit lane. As we just cast our eyes to the front, we still have Heasterbeek making his way like a hot knife through butter, through back markers, everyone being nice and respectful. What I've seen, some good stuff. Not impeding our leaders. Our closest scrap for position on the track is actually between P5 and P4, which was Beresford on Barkley, and that gap is 3 seconds. So not particularly close at all in reality, but anyway, those two are close together. One mistake from either of them could benefit the other, that is certain. Just keeping an eye on where other scraps may be.
Mike Bell and Roy Schroten, 10th and 11th. Barkley's just lapped Mike Bell. But I think this is going to be the closest one for quite a while, as Bell locks up going down into turn 5. And Schroten is slowly creeping up on him.
Indeed, as unfortunately by the looks of it, Sam Jones has retired from the race. Can't quite see where he was. I think he DNF'd fairly early on, but he's now just left the race. Unfortunately there for Sam, has found a salute for Jota. He's into the pits from P8. He missed his box a bit, but not by too much, so I don't think he was affected too badly by that. Fresh set of tyres by the looks of it, perhaps a little bit of fuel as well, but he's on his way, he's out the pit lane, he's stayed inside the top 10, so good result for the Simtech boys, as Sherwin carries on there. He's nicely out of the pit lane. Got plenty of clear road ahead of him. And interestingly, De Vries is his next target up the road. We saw De Vries really struggling on tyres. Haven't seen him come into the pits yet, but he is just a little way up the road, not very far at all. So we'll have to see if Sherwin can do anything there with his fresh tyres. We'll keep an eye on it.
I think Sven De Vries went into the pits a few laps ago. I'm just looking through his times, and there's not one recorded. So,
eagle eyes. Thank you very much.
But I'm also looking at Paul Watkins, who's in 15th place. He had a incident early on in the race, and of course we admired him for keeping going, and he's 4 laps down, 15th place, so he is going to get a point for this evening as long as he brings the car home.
Good stuff. See, it's never over until the fat lady sings or the checkered flag falls, one of the two. Anyway, so good to see Paul still going. He will be on for a point as it currently stands. We currently have 16 cars still remaining, as De Vries getting a little loose there off the exit of the final turn, turn 15, to complete his 35th lap, going on to his 36th racing lap now. Not too far to go for our drivers now. The end is very much in sight. The war of attrition has been real. Turns 12 and 13, I think, has become a very, turns 11 and 12 become quite an expensive car park, but we still have plenty of cars on the go.
Turn 3 has just claimed Van der Sloot. He just went off and skipped across, almost in front of Beresford. He skipped off, went through the gravel and onto the grass on the other side, but he narrowly missed the barrier, so he might not have much damage to the tyre. The tyres will, of course, be a little bit more worn due to the slide, but he's keeping going. He's still in 9th position. So,
Van der Wouder is out. Van der Wouder is out from P16. Just going to have to see what happened there. Run down into turn 1, he's run out of tyre, he's run out of road, and he's run into a wall. So that's the end of him. Suspension failure for the Smile Power Racing driver, and that leaves us with 15 runners and riders. If you finish, you will score championship points, gentlemen, so keep going. And yes, I saw Van der Sloot there going wide as well, as in fact he just had a little excursion there through the exit of turn 14. But yes, no, if you do run a little wide, there is actually some forgiving aspects. The actual gravel does slow you down a bit. You can avoid a barrier, so thankfully Sherwin was able to carry on there. Very conscious of the last commentary I did. I called out a driver, and they then promptly disconnected. So no more curse to the commentator, Sherwin. Great race, buddy. Keep going. Anyway, with that all being said and done, pace of Feasterbeek and Walk Racing continues to astound. He is clearly enjoying himself. He's lapped everyone now up to P5, and he's only a couple of seconds now, less than 5 seconds away from lap P5 as well. So he's clearly found something in this Dallara DW12, and he is putting himself in a very strong position at this early stage, admittedly early stage of the championship. Of course, another aspect which we haven't really talked about so far is obviously this is a series which not only takes in traditional race courses like this one, but also ovals. They're very different beasts. You never know. You may be very good on the road course, for example, but not be able to convert that pace on an oval. Tom, as someone who's done the Daytona 500 last year here at the GPVWC, how did you find the sort of conversion from a traditional road course driver, as we'd call it, to an oval driver?
Well, the Daytona 500, it was very challenging because it was an endurance race. I remember it lasted for about 3.5 hours, even a little bit longer. So, of course, you're constantly turning the wheel, you're having to put it back. It's not the same as doing like a track race, a circuit race like Le Mans, for example. But it's just as challenging because you've got to be very wary of where cars are around you because they're a lot closer than you'd expect. Of course, you've got people bump drafting you, you're reaching speeds of 200 miles an hour plus. And yeah, the cars are always wanting to kick out. Of course, one little mistake and that's your race ruined.
It is indeed, and of course we'll be seeing the full series or set of the DW12 car here. We're in our road course configuration here, big wings and plenty of aerodynamic pieces. When we get to ovals, we'll see the oval configuration, and of course at Indianapolis, the special Indy configuration as well. So keep an eye out for that, changing the car's dynamics significantly. So we'll have to see if our drivers are able to maintain their pace throughout the season anyway. Our top 5 has not changed. It remains Feasterbeek from Asbury, Brugman from Beresford, with Nico Barkley rounding out that top 5. Our leader has just completed the 39th race, or I beg your pardon, the 40th racing lap. He has 5 to go. Not a long way to go now, about 5 or 6 or so minutes. He's got 14 or so second gap to his teammate, and he's absolutely nailed this one in terms of the strategy for Walk Racing. And well, without a severe event impeding him, I think Rude's got this one in the bag.
Indeed. I'm just looking at any battles. The closest one is Roy Schroten and Mike Bell for 10th and 11th, but it seems to be about a 3-second gap, so everyone's split apart and they're doing their own thing now, which is a bit boring for viewers watching this, and, you know, a bit tricky to commentate on. But Ruud Heesbeek, as you said, doing a fantastic job keeping the gap, actually opening the gap up. 13.5 seconds.
Sorry to talk over you there. I mean, so fun enough, you're just about to mention, okay, yes, this perhaps has not got wheel-to-wheel racing for the full race distance. However, it's a very different style of race, much like we saw in Monte Carlo just a few weeks ago. It's not necessarily a race where it's all about overtaking and having the fastest lap. It's all about consistency. And just a moment ago, Nico Barkley in 5th place had a moment going through turns 11 and 12, which, well, we've seen it claim so many drivers, so it'd be a real shame at this phase in the race to lose another, especially since everyone is on course for scoring some points. So no, I think it's going to be one where ourselves as commentators, we need to commend the drivers, because this clearly is not easy, but they are making it look easy, staying here in the race, setting the lap times they are, and also getting absolutely everything out of these very challenging cars to drive on this circuit. So kudos to everyone still running, and clearly you'll get a good return on your investment today, that's for sure.
Definitely. I mean, I've been watching people go over turns 12 and 13 just to see what the challenge is. And it seems to be that going into turn 12 at the apex, the cars are actually getting air, and they land as the track starts going up again, which is until the cars, Garcia, he's gone off at turn 4. Oh, he's hit the barrier. That's his rear left and front wing and rear wing taken off. I think that might be another retirement.
Goodness me, I don't think you'll be getting that one too much further. That's a real shame there for Garcia and the Positive Sim Racing team, and unfortunately that is him retired. So huge disappointment there for Borja. Unlucky fellow. So very close to the end there, but still he completed 39 racing laps there. So still plenty of useful information to take from that, and to take to our next round. So huge commiserations for him there. That will promote P14, Ben Willis, and P15, Paul Watkins up a place once they complete those laps to get by him.
I also think that Garcia might actually be classified, because it's after 75% race distance, I would have thought. 39 out of 45. So I think he might be classified, which means he would get a point.
That's a good point. We'll have to wait and see on what the administration make of that one. But anyway, as our remaining 14, as it now is, make their way around this, oh goodness me, how long is this track? It's 2.3 miles, I know that much. But as they make their way around this 3.8 kilometer circuit, they are approaching the end. The end is very much in sight for them, as Ruud Heesbeek, he's now on his 44th racing lap to complete. His teammate Asbury is 15 seconds behind. I think these two are just bringing the cars home in a very wise manner for Warp. And Lars Brugman has had a great race, running the alternate strategy. I do wonder what he might have been able to do if he could have switched onto the ultimate tyre and really attacked towards the end. We'll never know now. But he completes his 43rd lap. He's on to his 44th, not far to go. Scott Beresford is still running P4 for TSA. He is now our last unlapped driver, and Heesbeek, the pace he is setting is so quick. I cannot recall in the whole time I've been here at the league currently up to P5 having been lapped. So Heesbeek, class of the field, that is no understatement, and he clearly is enjoying himself.
Indeed, and you mentioned about Lars Brugman being on the harder tyre. There's only 4 people on the hard tyre now. That's Lars Brugman, Scott Beresford, Lewis McGlade and Paul Watkins, with Brugman, Beresford and McGlade all within the top 6th, and Paul Watkins continually going around. He seems to be a bit slow at the moment. I think he's just trying to conserve a bit of fuel. Might have underfueled the car, but if he can complete this lap, then he will be getting 2 points from this evening.
Yep, and that will be a good result. Points mean prizes at the end of the year, so every little helps. Not to call in all of the little parlour phrases, but anyway, yes, points all round on the board if you finish, that's for sure. Just keeping an eye on if we've got any close battles between any of our lap runners.
I think Ruud Heesbeek's coming around the penultimate corner. Yeah,
sorry.
Ruud Heesbeek's coming around the final corner now to, I think, finish the race.
So as he's running around the last corner, he comes towards the start-finish line, and he, sure enough, completes the very first round. He is our very first winner of the GPVWC Atlantic Series. Huge congratulations to Rude and Walk Racing, a masterclass in how to drive this Dallara DW12 around a road circuit. His teammate Danny Asbury is 17 seconds up the road, or down the road, but he's now coming across the line for a perfect start for Walk Racing. P1 and P2 for Walk Racing. And we now wait for Lars Brugman. He's now running round turn 14. Willis ahead has spun, but he's got himself out of the way. And here comes the Team Proline driver. He tried the alternate strategy. He's gained positions. It nearly worked, but Brugman comes home in P3. A great result for Team Proline as we now wait for the rest of the field to complete. We are now actually just officially waiting for Scott Beresford. He is our last unlapped runner. Everyone else will complete the race next time they pass the start-finish line. But Beresford is our last unlapped runner for TSA. Here he comes for P4. He's moved towards the pit wall. He's brought it home. Brilliant work there for the TSA driver in a race which can only be described as one of attrition. Clearly the drivers who thought through their strategy ahead of time, thought about how to drive this race, they've come home with points, and everyone up to P14, or I beg your pardon, up to P15 should get points. That may include Garcia. We'll have to wait and see what the administration makes of that one.
Yeah, I just seen that Sven de Vries had a bit of a spin lock-up at turn 15 on the final lap.
And lost his rear wing, as far as I could see.
Oh, he has lost his rear wing. I know that Paul Watkins has decided to finish in the pits, which is interesting. Oh no, he's actually come out again. Okay.
Anyway, all of our drivers have been classified at this point with a lap time. And goodness me, as the race director has just said, well done to all those who have finished. That was a hard 50-minute drive for these gentlemen. It might not have been a race full of action and overtaking, but it was one of talent, ability, and being able to get the most out of this car. Honestly, on some of the courses we'll be coming to, particularly the road courses, you have to drive it like you've got eyes on stalks. You have to be so alert to the slightest movement from the car, a little oversteer, a little understeer, whatever it may be. And clearly the driver's able to get on top of that, and they've brought home, well, everyone who's finished has brought home points irrespective of where they finished. So huge congratulations to everyone who's finished the race. Perhaps not the race we were expecting, Tom, but a good one all the same.
Indeed it was. I mean, it was interesting to see like who was really pushing and who was actually trying to make it to the end. I mean, I think towards the end it was Lars Brugman and people below that were just focusing on getting to the end. They knew they weren't going to get any quicker. They weren't going to gain any more positions. They might as well kind of conserve what they have and just bring it home. And congratulations to everyone who actually managed to finish, and commiserations to those who unfortunately got devoured by turns 12 and 13.
Indeed, and congratulations to Simtech, I beg your pardon, Motorsport, on Twitter. Their driver, Sherman van der Sloot, did come home in the top 10 in the end. So good score of points for them. So congratulations, guys. Great to have you interacting with us on Twitter. And now we are just waiting to see if we have any drivers joining us for interviews. At the moment, I see that we've got the one. I think everyone. I think it'd be fair for everyone to join in if they want to, because that was one Herculean effort. Anyway, our first driver for this evening joining us, coming home in P2, is Danny Asbury. Congratulations, sir, on what looked like a very tough drive. Talk us through it.
Well, I really didn't have much confidence going into this whole event, so it was kind of shocking to see that I could run like top 5 times like competitive stuff. So turns out I had a chance that Paul couldn't do it in the Q session. The race, I really was looking at the pro line guys. They seem to be, I think, even a little bit quicker and single lap pace than me and Rude. So I think it came down to really what Jarl was doing. And I'm sorry if I'm killing his name, but he winds up going off, I think, in the first or second lap. And then after that, me and Rude just kind of kept the race under control. I was never really going to challenge Rude. And so, yeah, I was surprised I could kind of back off the limit as much as I did and still kind of pull the gap to third, which was Roland. Then Jarl came up again. And then finally, I think it ended on Lars.
Yeah, no, it was certainly a race of attrition, unfortunately. We certainly did see a few spins from drivers early on. And certainly through turns 11 and 12 particularly seemed to be a real challenge. How did you approach that? Just the amount of undulation change through there? I mean, was it a case of just being a little careful in the race and pushing in qualifying, or how did you approach that?
Me personally, I really backed off the limit through that. And I noticed a lot of drivers were, because you can take the first part of that corner flat, where you just had to be straight on the line. I didn't do that at all through the race. I just simply lifted. There's a few times, like later in the stint, I even braked a little bit, just touched the brakes. And yeah, I mean, because that's a spot of the track that you can absolutely lose a race. If you get one thing wrong, you know, you're into the tire barrier. So it's just, especially when, you know, it turned out me and Rude had a gap to third, there was no reason to kind of risk, you know, gaining maybe a few tenths or, you know, potentially losing our race. So definitely, I was backing out the limit the whole race.
Good stuff. Anyway, Danny, congratulations on coming home. One of only 14 in the end who made it. So enjoy the points. It's put you on a great standing here in the Atlantic Series. Thank you very much for joining us. We'll see you next round.
All right. Thank you guys for having me.
Now joining us, pleased to say, we have Ruud Heasterbeek, our race winner. Ruud, honestly, it was incredible to watch you drive this evening. Clearly the class of the field, clearly got a really good understanding of this Indy car. How much of a challenge was it to get yourself up and running here in what is a very different car on not only a very challenging track, but on a whole new sim as well? Are you being shy, Ruud? Are you there? I think Ruud's being a little shy. Anyway, well,
sorry. Yeah, I switched some settings. So okay, I'm here.
Well, welcome. Anyway, so Ruud, I mean, I'll say it again. This class of the field by a long way. Talk us through your approach for this race this evening. Getting used to the car, getting used to the sim, and this race course.
Oh, I adapted to the car quite easily. I really liked it in the pre-season testing, but of course I had no idea what times people were going to set in the race. And yeah, I think close to race day it was clear that we were on the pace. And then with me and Danny, I think we had first and third, first and fourth, I don't know, in the qualifying, so we were looking really good. And then Jarl was looking quite strong, but he binned it in the chicane. And then I think we had such a large gap so soon that we could take it quite easy in the race. It was really nice track, I thought. I really enjoyed it today.
Yeah, it's one of my favourites as well. I do enjoy driving Barber Motorsport Park. Our next track on the calendar will be at Indianapolis. It's the infield, a very different course to the one here. Is there going to be anything perhaps you've learned from this evening you can take to that course in terms of perhaps, you know, the car drives in the race or anything like that? Or are you perhaps just going to look at it as a fresh challenge and you know, approach it that way?
Yeah, I'll see how the track is because I'm not really familiar with the American circuit, so it will be very new to me. Yeah, I'll just take it as it comes and see what we can use from what we have learned in this event.
Well, good stuff. Anyway, thank you very much for joining us. Congratulations again on a superb drive. Class the field by a long way. Thank you very much for joining us. We will see you in 2 weeks' time for the next round.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. So we're hopefully just trying to grab our third place finisher, Lars Brugman, as well. Just trying to get him onto or into our broadcast booth. While we're trying to do that, Tom, we've had quite an interesting race. I had in my mind a picture of how it might go this evening in terms of we might see some different strategies coming into play. It didn't quite happen like that, but you know, we've got a long season ahead. We've got obviously race courses, road courses, and also ovals. Do you think this might be the format we see more of, or do you think that this was perhaps just the early going and people getting used to how the car reacts on a road course?
Well, first of all, I think that, you know, the first event in a new series is all going to be about trying to gain the knowledge, trying to get the understanding of the car and the tracks as well, and the new platform. But yeah, it was very interesting to see like that people were spread out. I mean, Ruud just pulling away, lapping everyone up to I think fourth at the end, and yeah, a lot of people just changing the way they have to drive as well. A lot of lockups as well, costing people, and of course the infamous turn 12 and 13 that claimed so many this evening.
Yeah, indeed. I think, to be fair, the track was certainly a real test for our drivers. You know, it was going to be one of those where, as Danny said earlier, it's easier to lose time and potentially the whole race, in particular that section there. than to perhaps just take your foot off the gas a bit and let the car safely get through there. But anyway, I think everyone who was raced tonight, they will be able to take some lessons away, and well, everyone who finished will be able to take some points away as well. So that's a great way to start the season as well. Anyway, one final person I'll bring in at this point is our cameraman, Mr. Cameron Brewster. Before we get on with any chit chat, our thanks again to you guys. We know we've had a few issues with the broadcast, and thank you, Cam, for doing everything in your power to get everything to work as well as possible. So what was your impression of that race? Was that what you were expecting? Because actually, what we can get now, of course, is you are, of course, team boss of TSA. Was that what you were expecting from a team's perspective?
First of all, I don't know what Rude had for breakfast this morning, but it seems to be doing wonders for him. Congratulations on the win there. Obviously, I'm slightly biased with that as well. But no, phenomenal drive from my two drivers. They tried an alternate strategy like Lars did, and yeah, could not be happier. I think, correct me if I'm wrong, that puts us second in the team's championship after round one, given that we had both cars high up. So no, very happy with that.
Well, congratulations. But did the issue with not being able to change the tyre compounds, has that really hindered you, or has everything kind of gone to plan and you've just worked your way around the issues?
I think that's what they wanted to do. I could be wrong, but I don't know whether it was forcing people to stay on the same tyre throughout the race, so I'll have to check with them when I speak to them after this. So we'll see.
Oh, very good. Well, anyway, a good result for you as a team boss, of course, and well, hopefully you enjoyed the broadcast as well. I think we'll wrap this one up. Tom, any closing thoughts?
Not really. Just that a bit surprised to see that turns 12 and 13 were actually causing so much of a ruckus. I would have thought it would have been more simpler to do, but also the other corners like turns 2 and 3 and 4 claiming people in tonight's racing. So all those who managed to stay on track and not make mistakes, congratulations to you. You've done a fantastic job.
Hear, hear. And with that concludes the Grand Prix of Alabama, won in superb fashion from Rude Heasterbeek. Will Rude be able to continue that into the next round? Well, there's only one way to find out. Join us in 2 weeks' time for round 2 of the GPVWC Atlantic Series. From Indianapolis, we'll have the infield race course as used in Formula One to bring you there. And I believe we'll have 34 laps from there. So yes. Look forward to that. That'll be in 2 weeks' time. But if you want to see some more racing in the more immediate future, well, good news. You only have to wait 24 hours. The next round of the GPVWC WSS World Sports Series will be coming at you same place, same time tomorrow evening, live from the circuit de Gilles Villeneuve from Montreal. 2 very sprint races by comparison to this coming up for you there. And if you're at all interested in seeing what other racing opportunities you can take part in here at the GPVWC, head on over to the website, gpvwc.com. We have open wheelers, we have tin tops, we have a little bit of everything. So I'm sure there'll be something which will tickle your fancy. Anyway, so on behalf of the broadcast team this evening, thank you very much for joining us. We'll see you next time out on the racetrack.